Morning, everybody. Everybody doing okay? Good. Morning, Brandon. Wait a couple more minutes to see if anybody else is coming in. First, does anybody have any questions over the annotated bibliography or anything else we've talked about? Good so far? Just remember those 3 pieces of information you need. You need the bibliographic information. Basically means author, title, publication, right? 2, type of source, and summary of content. And 3, how will you use it in your paper? And please be specific. Don't just say, I'm going to use it to support my argument. You need to say, I'm going to use it to support this specific argument, or as an introduction, or as a guide to other sources, or to provide background information. Remember all those things we talked about. So what are some of the things you're going to need to put into your paper? What are some of the elements that we talked about that you're going to need in there? I'll give you the first one. You're going to need an introduction. What else? What else are you going to need, Mary? Yes, very good. One very important element, you're going to have to address the opposition arguments. What are your 2 options for doing that? Justin, what are your 2 options for addressing the opposition? Agree, but find a way around it. Yeah, very good, Brady. So basically, you acknowledge they got a point. Yeah, I'll give you that one, right? So basically, yeah, you're right about that. But, okay, so yes, it might be more expensive to open up schools all year round in terms of building maintenance, but there are ways we can make more money from renting the buildings out, or you provide some sort of alternative, right? The other one, yes, Robert, shoot it down and provide the evidence that explains why they're wrong. Okay. So you'll need an introduction. You'll need to address the opposition. What else do you need to do in your draft? Matt, what do you think? What else? Well, what are the elements you need to put in your draft? We talked about having an introduction, addressing the opposition, background information. Thank you, Adeline. Yeah, that's one of them. I'm begging here. Please do not go back to, like, if you're going to talk about the death penalty, don't talk about, like, the death penalty was instituted in Roman times. No. Please just give me the background information that's current to what we need to understand the issue you're talking about. So if you're talking about, like, the moratorium on the death penalty in Illinois actually suspended their death penalty several years ago because they found several people on death row who were later exonerated of the crime they'd been convicted of. So they were like, oh, we can't put people to death until we figure out a better way to do this system. So let's say you were doing a paper on whether they should reinstate the death penalty in Illinois or they should eliminate it altogether. I don't need to know about, like, how the Romans killed people, right? Don't use that as filler. So I'm begging you, please do not use the background information as filler. You have plenty of other stuff you have to address. And if you're looking for expanding the content, for the first draft of the research paper, guys, I'm going to read the first draft and make comments on it about where you can expand, what you might want to still do, play devil's advocate if I need to help you out with your opposition. Okay. And we will have a conference over it. So that week after you guys turn in your first draft next week, I will talk to each of you and I'll have a conference sign up for you and I'll send out the link to that. So you guys will sign up and talk to me over that week, and we won't have Zoom classes next week. You will just come for your conference. You guys follow me? So Monday, we'll go ahead and do the peer review because that's when the first draft is due. So we will have class. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I will be conferencing with everybody. Okay, and we won't have the Zoom classes. Questions about that? That way I can give you some good feedback on your first draft. And then we'll come back for the second draft the following week. And that's the draft we'll be working on things like word choice. Remember, making it pretty, sentence flow, making sure your tone doesn't hurt your ethos. So you need people to read it and go, oh, you're being a little intense here, or maybe your word choice could be a little off-putting to some of your audience, or some of the arguments you're using aren't quite right. Okay, we can do that in the first draft too. But a lot of the second draft will be about making it pretty. Okay. All right. So yes, you'll need, don't forget, you need also at least 3 supporting points. In addition, and you're shooting for 5 to 6 pages for your draft for Monday. Okay. So all of these need to be elements: your introduction, some background information that is specific to the modern take you're doing on your issue, your 3 supporting points, and your response to the opposition, and then finally, write your conclusion. So that should really, if you can fit all that into 5 pages, you may have more, which would be great. The more you show me in your first draft, the more I can help you with, right? So I would take it like section by section, and you don't have to start with like the introduction if you don't have an idea for it. If you know one of the points you're going to use to support your argument, then start there. Start where you have the best idea, and that generally kind of turns the tap on, and then it helps you with other ideas. Okay. Any questions about the first draft on Monday? 5 to 6 pages for Monday. We will meet for peer review. And the rest of the week, conferences on Zoom individually. And I'll send out the schedule so everybody has it and post it on Blackboard too. Okay. All right, I want to talk about some more logical fallacies because forewarned is forearmed. So basically, there's a ton of them out there. These are the tricks that people use to try to fool us with arguments that don't make sense. So far, what are some of the logical fallacies that we've talked about? You don't have to know the like specific name, just like what is it that they do that it does not make sense. Brandon, can you think of one? What are the logical fallacies we've talked about? Yeah, thanks, Mary. So basically attacking the person as your argument. Right, try to get us not to like them. Ryan, can you think of one? What's a hasty generalization? Three older people have run me off the road. Therefore, all older people cannot drive. What's wrong with that logic? Stereotypes, right? You put a group of people in a box based on too few examples. Okay? So you're making a large conclusion about a group, or it doesn't even have to be a group. It's just the basis of a lot of stereotypes. You know, like I went to get some groceries from Schnucks, and all of their oranges were bad. Therefore, all Schnucks stores have bad oranges. So about a group or a situation. What else have we talked about so far? We're going to talk about some more today. So I want to share some of the more common ones that you will see. So I have a little video I'm going to share with you guys about 5 of them. Oh yeah, we did start to talk about straw man. I think I've got some more examples in this video. The straw man is when instead of addressing the real opposition, right, you kind of misconstrued the opposition's opinion into something that's easy to defeat or that seems ridiculous, you know? And actually, he's going to give an example of that in the video. Easy to knock down. Instead of dealing with stuff that's really hard, you know, if it's a controversy, there's legitimate opinions on both sides, right? But instead of dealing with the real opposition, then you deal with sort of the faux opposition or you misconstrue the other side and what they're saying. So let's look at some examples. Hold on a second, I'll share my screen with you guys. So here are 5 fallacies.
There's a lot of arguing on the internet. There's a lot of arguing everywhere, but sometimes it feels like the internet is a place that people go specifically to argue. And that's great. Heated debate is how we move issues forward, generate knowledge, and reach understanding. Because that's the point of arguing, right? To reach an understanding, right? Right? Why are you looking at me like that? Anyway, for obvious reasons, we here at Idea Channel want everybody arguing at their full capacity all the time. So what follows is a kind of Audubon field guide for bad arguments. A list of some of the most common fallacies, flaws in logic that can appear airtight even though they're not. Sometimes they're used intentionally to distract, derail, deflate, but lots of times, even the ones called intentional fallacies are deployed because by their very nature they seem appropriate. When an interlocutor feels as though they are out of logical road, they sometimes veer onto the less than solid fallacy shoulder. The following are not nearly all or the most interesting fallacies, but rather the ones that I see the most often. The goal of this video is to assist you in assisting your fellow conversationalists in identifying their unintentionally faulty logic. This is one long video, but in the doobly-doo and in a playlist on Idea Channel's channel page, we'll find one video for each fallacy. This way, when you do locate a fallacy out in the wild, you can direct the person who's deployed it to a source, letting them know the faultiness of their ways and encouraging them to do better, because we know that they are capable. We believe in them. So with that being said, on with the fallacies. The straw man fallacy. Contrary to what many people would have us believe, a straw man is not simply an argument that you dislike or find inconvenient. Rather, it is a version of an argument that is misrepresented, simplified, so that it is easier to knock over. Just as an actual man made of straw is a less solid version of a man made of flesh, a straw man argument is a less solid version of a fully fleshed out argument. A straw man replaces or represents whatever actual argument is being made. Straw manning can come in many different forms. It's not even always intentional. You might accidentally construct a straw man if you don't fully understand the depth of an argument. And that is fine. It happens to the best of us. However, to intentionally misread or misrepresent an argument to simplify the process of discrediting it, that's a little bit less forgivable. To take nuanced points out of context, to ignore crucial information, to even exaggerate claims to the point of absurdity, which is then easier to refute. These are all straw man tactics. For example, Mike and Straw Mike are having a conversation about how to responsibly depict awful stuff in media. I don't think it's too much to ask that when a media creator wants to show heinous or awful stuff, they do so in a context that shows that that stuff is heinous and awful. Oh, so now we're not allowed to do violent or terrible things unless we include some long-winded sermon about how bad things are bad? I think creators should be able to show or do whatever they want. The original argument states a preference for what Mike thinks constitutes the responsible use of media. The straw man argument recasts this as something much simpler and easier to agree with. Freedom is good, censorship is bad. But now Mike and Straw Mike are no longer arguing about the same point, and so the conversation will quickly become unfocused and aggressive, which is never fun. If you're going to win an argument, you want to win against what the other side actually thinks, don't you? A straw man argument keeps that from happening. I hope this description of the straw man fallacy has been helpful. Happy conversing. The ad.
Any questions about that? It just basically means you take the other side's argument, and instead of really dealing with it, you distort it into something that it's easy for everybody to jump on or to defeat. Ad hominem again.
Attack. Ad hominem criticism is where instead of criticizing the argument or ideas of the person with whom you are conversing, you criticize the person themselves. And in so doing, claim you have also criticized their argument. And boy, is this one popular. Ad hominem criticisms are not always, but are very frequently fallacious. Unless the character or actions of the person making an argument are directly related to the matter at hand, criticizing them and not their ideas is a fallacy. Ad hominem attacks are the bread and butter of political advertising. Criticizing a candidate and saying that because their character is bad, their ideas and policies are also bad. John Smith hates little children, and so his ideas about salmon fishery safety regulations are wrong. Dead wrong. A related fallacy is tu quo qui, where it is argued that a person making an argument has behaved in a way inconsistent with that argument.
We talked a little about this.
Might be inconsistent, but it doesn't necessarily make their argument wrong. For example, it's really important for fast food restaurants to be clear about the salt, fat, and sugar content of their food, doubly so because of how cheap it is. Obesity is a real problem in America. What business do you have asking companies to disclose this stuff? I saw you eat 2 Big Macs and drink 34 ounces of high-C orange lava burst yesterday. This is an ad hominem tu quoque attack. Mike argues for the presence of certain dietary information, and Straw Mike says that based on his behavior, he lacks the authority to do so. Straw Mike's response doesn't at all approach the point Mike is making, though. Mike is arguing that if certain dietary information were widely available, it's possible that an effect on obesity would occur. Ad hominem attacks make it so the person being attacked suddenly has to defend their character and not their ideas, when in fact they're...
So I see this a lot, like if anybody argues for an environmental regulation, so they'll accuse them of, well, you fly in an airplane, so you've got no business talking about how to help the environment because you're hurting the environment by flying in an airplane. Their actions, whether they are consistent with their argument or not, does not make the argument less valid. You guys following me? So it doesn't disqualify the logic of their argument. If you accuse them of doing something inconsistent with the environment, they could still be right about the environment, right? They may not be acting in a way that's going to help the environment, but their argument can still be consistent with, something that would help the environment. You can, it might hurt their credibility a little bit, but basically you should still look at their argument and see if it's justified.
Character has no bearing on the conversation whatsoever. And also it's mean. You seem like a nice person. No need for insults. I hope this description of the ad hominem attack has been helpful. Happy conversing. The black and white fallacy. A black and white fallacy is where you present limited choices as the only choices, when in fact additional options do exist. Sometimes called the false dichotomy or false dilemma,
or either or fallacy.
Is a really easy way of eradicating complexity and nuance. The most common black and white fallacy is the old saying, either you're for us or against us. But in fact, it's highly likely one might find arguments on either side of a position appealing, and therefore occupy some previously unannounced space on a continuum between the two positions. Much of governmental and gender politics, for example, operate on a very widely spread adoption of a black and white fallacy. Sometimes the black and white fallacy presents a dichotomy between two things that are not actually opposites or mutually exclusive. No continuum exists between those two things because they are not related to each other in the way that the black and white fallacy presents them to be. For example, it would be nice to have more well-written, playable female characters in video games. If you want more playable female characters, that means you must want fewer male characters, and those are the ones that I like the most. Are you trying to ruin games? In this situation, Straw Mike's black and white fallacy is that in games, either specifically or generally, there can only be male or female characters. Having more of one automatically means that there is less of the other. That is not the case. More of something is not always automatically less of its opposite, and so this dichotomy is false. The black and white fallacy presents nuanced arguments as being, well, black and white, and presents only extremes as being available for further discussion, even when that's not the case. What are you doing? Are you backing down from a challenge? That's not like you. I hope this description of the black and white fallacy has been helpful. Happy conversing. The authority fallacy. The authority fallacy holds that because someone in a position...
Before we move on, like black and white fallacy, some of the common arguments you may have heard are America, love it or leave it. These are not the only two options, right? We can stick around in our country and make meaningful changes to make it a better country, or, to hold the ideals that somebody feels they, should strive for as an American. You don't have to just be like, oh, you either agree with everything we say or get out. That is an either or fallacy argument. So be careful when you hear an argument and they're only giving you two choices, basically, on a complex issue, because usually there's more options than that, right? Either we regulate all experiments on genetics, or we'll have, green purple monsters running around. These are not the only two options, okay? So always, if somebody gives you only two choices, and one is usually the worst case scenario that they don't want you to choose, and the other one is their argument that looks more reasonable, make sure that those are really the only two choices, because usually they are not. All right, authority fallacy.
Of assumed authority has said something, that thing must be true. However, the authority fallacy is just as important for what it isn't. It isn't meant to defeat statements made by experts or by scientific consensus. Saying that global warming is true and man-made because the vast majority of scientists that study it produce evidence that support this claim is not an example of the authority fallacy. Neither is stating, for instance, that all medical technology is blind to race based on Lundy Braun's exhaustive research of the spirometer. The scientific community and experts in their field of study are authorities. The authority fallacy applies this level of respect for authority to people who don't actually possess it. The first-hand accounts of our friends, family members, and coworkers do not constitute authority and therefore truth. Unless, of course, they also happen to be experts. For example, Mike and Straw Mike are talking about automobile manufacturing. Well, Korean cars in America are so cheap. I wonder how they do that. Well, my uncle is a mechanical engineer, and he says that it's because they use terrible cheap parts. You are literally trading money for safety. Straw Mike's uncle might be an engineer, and that's awesome, but it doesn't necessarily give him the authority to talk about the construction of certain parts in vehicles. This is an authority fallacy unless it turns out Straw Mike's uncle is an independent researcher conducting a peer-reviewed study on the international automobile industry and its effects on safety. The authority fallacy trades actual points for external, non-expert anecdotes, the plural of which, you might have heard, is not data. Your uncle seems like a really cool guy, but I bet you can win this argument without him. I hope this description of the authority fallacy has been helpful. Happy conversing. The no true...
So this is, the authority fallacy is sort of like a little knowledge can be dangerous. Like, I read a book on it, therefore I'm going to give you my expert opinion. Generally, you have to have a legitimate expert who spent many years if you're going to use them as the basis of an argument. Like when you choose sources for your research paper, you don't want to choose someone who is coming off the cuff about something that they read just a little bit about and now feel they're an expert on. So you'll find a lot of this in the news where people are contradicting experts or scientists with just sort of little anecdotal pieces of information, and like their expertise is just a little bit to the side of whatever it is they're talking about. So be careful the person you're looking at is actually an expert before you take their opinion.
True Scotsman fallacy. The no true Scotsman fallacy calls into question the purity or actualness of something as a way to refute an argument. Usually it works like this. You claim some set of things has a universal characteristic. Someone then provides an exception to the rule, making your claim universal no longer, and then you respond by saying, well, only true things in that set. No true Scotsman defends their claim based on a reactionary, subjective notion of what category something belongs in, or to what degree that thing truly belongs in that category. Classically, no true Scotsman is used to exclude bad actors from a group. Anthony Flew, who coined this fallacy, described a Scotsman who, upon learning that one countryman committed a violent act, said no true Scotsman would do such a thing. However, there are a couple what you might call versions of no true Scotsman. One of them has to do with in-group maintenance, claiming that no true gamer, comic book reader, Republican, or feminist would say or believe a certain thing. This tactic avoids confronting a counter-argument by saying the person who exhibits it is not truly the thing they claim. And so the exception they provide is null and void. No true Scotsman also works to exclude ideas and objects, not just people. For example, Mike and Straw Mike are talking about video games. All video games must have clearly stated goals.
Put that back. It's a bag on mine.
Gone Home doesn't have either of those things. Right, but Gone Home is not a true video game. The conversation would be, what happens to the category? Consider Gone Home part of it, or to discuss what about the category of video game, or Straw Mike at least, absolutely requires that it have clearly stated goals and win-lose conditions. Instead, the conversation is stopped dead in its tracks because the entire point hinges upon one side's subjective sense of what is and is not truly whatever. And now we're just arguing opinion, which will only ever end in Godwin's law.
God sure are a contentious people.
Just made an enemy for life. I hope this description of the no true Scotsman fallacy has been helpful. Happy conversing. And with that, we come to the end of our set of fallacies. Though, as it turns out, not all fallacies. There are a lot of fallacies out there. And if you like this kind of thing, if you want to see us make more videos in this.
Okay. You can see there are a lot of flawed logical arguments out there that try to basically get around dealing with the real.
I did. You know, you couldn't have because it wouldn't sound like that.
Okay. There's one more I want to talk about that you'll see a lot, and it's called the post hoc fallacy. And this is a cause and effect fallacy, and it's used a ton. Since I've come into office, unemployment has gone down by a bazillion points, okay? That only uses the order of events to argue that something is true. So first this happened, and then this happened, therefore the first event must have caused the second. You cannot just say that the order something happened is the cause of the second event. It might be. That's why we get a lot of people get away with the post hoc fallacy, because it could have happened, you know. So I can say the paparazzi were chasing Princess Diana's car and it crashed. Therefore, they caused it to crash. Just the order those things happened, it's possible, of course, that they did, but without connecting evidence or eyewitnesses or something else like that, you cannot use just the order things happened as an argument. So a lot of superstitions are based on this. Like I broke a mirror and then I had 7 years of bad luck, or a black cat crossed my path and now I have bad luck, or, you know, open an umbrella inside, bad luck. You see how only the order of events connects those things. There's no actual connection that we can observe or prove between two events. So you have to be careful. Just because something happened first and something happened second, it does not automatically support. It could be, but you have to have more evidence. There's no evidence just in the order of events. So let's look at this.
Correctly argues that because his roommate moved in after his fridge broke, she must be the reason.
Ernie. Oh, hi, Bert. You still have that banana in your ear? What? I said you still have that banana in your ear. Yeah, Bert, I know. You know? Ernie, why is that banana still in your ear? Listen, Bert. I use this banana to keep the alligators away. Alligators? Ernie, there are no alligators on Sesame Street. Right. Doing a good job, isn't it, Bert?
Years old, 2.5 years old, a beautiful child, went to have the vaccine and came back and a week later got a tremendous fever, got very, very sick, now is autistic. I only say I'm in favor of vaccines. Do them over a longer period of time, same amount.
Thank you. In this clip, Trump believes that the reason the child became sick was due to the vaccine, based only on the fact that the vaccine became
Okay. So yeah, you'll see the post hoc fallacy a lot. And a lot of these arguments work because they could be true, some of them. They just lack evidence, or they'll play into things that we tend to already believe already. So yeah, one thing that occurs to me I've seen in the news recently is apparently a lot of people who go to church feel that God will protect them from getting the coronavirus. So they, first I I prayed to God, and then I didn't get the coronavirus, therefore God protected me from the coronavirus. This is a post hoc fallacy, okay? Without some other evidence of divine intervention, it's not an argument saying that you're protected just because you didn't get it. It could be coincidence, okay? So can you guys think of any other examples of post hoc fallacy? Or find any? Basically, politicians like to use this a lot. Or make up your own. Trying to think. Yeah, my dad was a big believer in post hoc fallacy, you know. Somebody came to our house and then something broke, so they must have broken it. It's the same thing. It's Joey's logic on it, right? Or my grandmother was visiting and then there were marks in the sink or something crazy like that. You have to have connecting evidence between the two things. Yes, yes. Lucky Charms are definitely the rabbit's foot. Anything that you feel protects you, or it basically, first I had the rabbit's foot, and then nothing happened to me, and I was protected from misfortune. That would be an example of post hoc fallacy. Let's see what else. I can't think of anything else I've heard recently. What about any of the others? You had friends over, something went missing, they must have stolen it. Exactly, right? Without any proof, just the order that things happened. A few years ago, like the manatees were dying in Florida, and they found out that a chemical company had accidentally released some chemicals in the area. So people were arguing that probably caused the manatees to die. It's possible, and it's certainly something that they should investigate, but just the order that things happened is not sufficient to make the argument, right? You have to have some kind of evidence that connects the two events, okay? So like drowning deaths go up in June, July, and August, and so does ice cream consumption. So ice cream consumption must cause drowning. No. It happens that those two things, follow each other. That does not mean they're connected. Okay. Unfortunately, this is the one that, as he was saying, that Trump was using the example of the autism, and it's extremely, these fallacies can be extremely harmful. So although there's no evidence that a lot of immunizations cause problems, basically it's been used for a whole community to avoid vaccinating their children and come up with sort of pseudoscientific theories on, naturalness is better, and all of these crazy vaccines are killing us or messing with our natural immune system. So then you get people who have the measles, and then they infect babies who are too young to be, and they die. So yeah, there's some things out there. Same thing with global warming. Oh, I went outside today and they're crazy. It was like 114 degrees. So there must be global warming. No, that's not evidence. Okay. Sometimes you don't want people to help you on your side argument. The science is the evidence. You guys following me? So global warming has other science behind it, but just because you have like one day, well, I'm going back to hasty generalization now. Apologies. But there are lots of arguments out there where you have to look at them carefully, because sometimes they will subscribe to things you already believe in. And so you don't look at them too closely,